QuickBooks has a good system for tracking taxes, but not always all of the state taxes. There are many of the banks offer payroll services. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they all have payroll services. We're actually in Nevada State Bank. Nevada State Bank offers us at the corporate level. And so many banks have a payroll process. They'll set you up, get you set up properly. You'll be able to run the payroll fairly easy, and the taxes will be collected by the payroll company and they'll be paid. The problem that sometimes happens is that you have to know the payroll company defers to the employer to tell them anything that needs to be done different. Wage and hour. Wage and hour. How many here? So what's the rule for overtime? Anybody? After 40 hours, that's federal law, right? So if I work more than 40 hours and I'm a non-exempt employee, meaning I don't manage anybody, then whatever rate I make, I get overtime for over 40. What's Nevada law? Nevada law supersedes federal. It says that if I make less than time and a half of minimum wage, what's minimum wage? $7.25 is federal, $8.25 is state. So time and a half is $12.38 an hour. So if you pay me $12.50, I only get overtime if I work more than 40 hours in the work week. What's a work week? A 7-day period, Monday through Sunday, for example. But if I make $10 an hour, I get overtime if I work more than 8 hours in a day, regardless if I work a 40-hour work week. And so it becomes complicated, and tracking that stuff through a payroll service or through a time and attendance system is real important.
Can you also tell them about the 24-hour rule?
I didn't want to, but the 24-hour rule won't apply to you as much. At the end, it affects hospitality especially, or 24-hour facilities. So Nevada has this other thing called the 24-hour rule, and it says that if you start me today at 8 o'clock, and you have me come in tomorrow at 7, then you pay me an hour overtime because it hasn't been 24 hours since I began my last shift. So you can see how restaurants need to deal with that. We deal with that. Come end of the year, it's the busiest time for us with Christmas, Thanksgiving, bonuses at the end of the year, W-2s. It's not unusual that we have our staff come in a little bit earlier. And so we have that exposure as well. So that's how that works.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
A lot of dentists do have staggering hours. They might start at 10 o'clock one day, let's say 10 o'clock to 7, and the next day they start at 8 o'clock to 12
Sure,
o'clock.
sure.
So are you saying that second day we would have to pay overtime those first?
Yes, you would. If you put that person to work earlier, yes.
But it's if they don't make time and a half of minimum wage,
Right.
right?
So if you are hiring me at $12 an hour, and today you started me at 8, and tomorrow you needed me to come in at 7, you would pay that 1 hour overtime. So what you want to do is you want to take a look at your strategy in terms of compensation. Because if you're close to that $12 an hour, and you are having overtime, your patient load is such that you're having people come in at that staggering hours. You just kind of want to manage that and take a look. Does it make sense just to pay them $12.38 an hour? Yes, ma'am.
But isn't that an average of 40 hours a week over a certain period of time? So like you might have an employee come in at 7 one day and 6 the next day, but they're not full-time employees, so they don't pay you that rate because over, I don't know if it's 6 months or a year, you're not working 40 hours a week.
Right. That makes sense if I am above the time and a half of minimum wage in the state of Nevada. So if you pay me $12.50 an hour, you're right. I may work 9 hours on Monday, and Tuesday I only work 6. At the end of the 7-day work period, I may still be at 40 or less than 40. But the minute you pay somebody less than time and a half of minimum wage, they're getting overtime for working over 8 in a day, regardless if they meet 40 hours.
I think everybody in a dental office though is making well above that.
Yeah, most of them. So payroll's about, you got to manage garnishments, child supports, any of those kinds of things that come through, liens that the government sends you. Okay. Risk management. Risk management, you have some exposure, especially as medical facilities. Risk management, I mean, we've had situations, everything from with a workers' comp claim where somebody files a claim, but it really doesn't belong to the client. They had received the injury prior. We had a medical facility where somebody actually punctured themselves with equipment, and then they went down, were tested, and they tested positive. And when we hire an employee, we have them sign a background check that allows us to go and do workers' compensation background checks. And what happened as a result of this employee had the same problem with their previous medical facility that they worked at. And when somebody is in that situation, they're supposed to be tested every quarter for 4 quarters to determine if they're positive or negative. And this person stopped after the 2nd quarter. Then it came up in this new practice. And so what happened? The workers' comp claim was covered, but at a reduced rate, and it protected the client. So there's a number of things that you have to look at in terms of providing a safe environment, and having a good safety and risk management program is important. Ongoing training, a safety manual on board, etc. Benefits. One of the things that the country is all over the place when it comes to benefits right now with the Affordable Care Act and everything that's going on. Now, I don't know if you all understand that anybody who has less than 49 employees, you go into the community pool, okay? And so if you, all of us right here started a business today, we're going to get a health plan that's based on a female, young, and old guy. And so I might get an $800 fee. She might get $200. But the net effect between the two of us is what? $500 average per employee. So if we had all young people, you'd probably get a great rate. But the reality is that businesses with 5, 10, 15 employees, it's a mixture. And so what's happening with health insurance is that it continues to go up more than anything else. There are plans that you can get into that are underwritten. If we took our group and underwrote ourselves in terms of our health, we might even get a better rate than if we were in the community. And so some of those strategies you have to take a look at what's available to you in terms of offering your practice, your employees, benefits. So part of the strategy is, do you need to offer benefits? Is that what your industry does? Is that how you attract employees and retain them? And does that include a 401k plan? How do you decide whether you match or you don't match? And so all of those things are important in terms of developing and determining your benefits package. So do me a favor and just write down this one thought, is that you will pay, it'll cost you somewhere between 20 and even as high as 50% of gross wages to provide benefits. Now, let me explain that real quick for you. If you just add up all the taxes, you're already at 13%. You match Social Security, Medicare, FUTA, unemployment, modified business tax, workers' comp. That's about 13, 14%. Add health insurance, and let's just assume it's a $300 a month health insurance, and you're picking up 50%. That's another $1,800. It's probably another 3 or 4%. Start adding a 401k plan and matching it at 3%. You can see where the numbers are going. But don't let that scare you, because at the end of the day, what happens is that when you hire a $30,000 a year employee, the more money an employee makes, the less they cost you, because they hit the tax limits. You stop paying FUTA tax after the employee hits $7,000. That's $42. The workers' comp, I forget what the comp is for a dental office off the top of my head, but it's not a lot. It's not huge. It's got to be less than a percent. And so you pay, let's say, 1% on the first $36,000 in earnings. And so that's what you'll pay. And so it makes sense to retain people. If we're turning over everybody every 6 months and you're starting over on the tax limits, that's what a payroll service does for you in terms of managing those things. Benefits, again, it's all over the place. You know, we as a company want to help our employees. We pick up 100% of the health, dental, and vision. And then I have single parents who are struggling to cover their children on health insurance. And the amount is, the fees are, the premiums are astronomical. And so managing that and planning for that is an important part of your financial planning with your business. And it goes all across the board. And of course, this has nothing to do with how you build your practice with your key partner, the other dentist, whether you're going to have key life insurance or any other items that help with that. And all of you are probably familiar with, at some level, with all of these different types of benefits. So with that, let's open it up for questions, comments, thoughts. Yes, sir. So the right to work says that the employee has a right to quit, and you and I as an employer have the right to terminate. But here's the caveat. I have the right to quit anytime. You can't terminate me. Am I over 40? The only thing they don't have up there anymore is height rule. They don't have a height discrimination, okay? So you have to be careful. So what we do is that it's about progressive discipline. And so the right to work state means that I can terminate you, terminate the employee for any reason at any time. But if you turn around and say, he terminated me because I can't see real good, and claim it a medical situation, because I have a responsibility that if you've come to me and said, I'm having problems with my left eye, well, what do we need to do to accommodate you for your job? Well, obviously, if you're a dentist, it probably doesn't work, right? But if you're working on a computer, can I get you a larger screen? Is it putting something on there? If it's a reasonable accommodation, I need to be taking a look at that. So the right to work state just reminds the employee in an employment agreement that they can quit at any time and we can terminate at any time. However, the caveat behind that is that I better follow the rules with respect to people over 40, you know, color, sexual issues, that kind of stuff.
Remember what Zindra said about,
It's all complex.
yeah, what she said, you always want to get them to give you a letter of resignation. Make it so hard for them that they say, that's it, I quit. You say, sign here.
You know, and I appreciate that, Dr. Wyman, but we do this in the spirit of building people. Human capital management, it's capital. People care. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and things change for us, right? The reason I hired you today, all of those reasons for hiring that person today, what has changed 3 months from now where the person is not performing well? What's going on? Now, it's none of my business, and they need to be grown-ups as far as their personal lives and not bring it to the office. But what you have to do is give them every opportunity to rectify it. Now, I don't mean that as a huge cost. I have clients that say, I just want this person out of here. Well, okay, these are your potential exposures. I don't care. Why should I have to keep them? Well, they were good at one time. They were with you 3 years and they've been okay. And so we have to dig into all of that. And so all we do is we investigate, we review the job description, we make sure the employee agrees that that's what they're doing, we set them up on a performance improvement, and what happens, the problem takes care of itself. Because at the end of the day, the employee will, if they're not authentic, they'll quit. But you've covered your bases. It doesn't mean, though, that somebody quits and you still won't get a legal claim. We have a client that years, almost 2 years, the employee was gone. And what it was a casino. And the manager one of his subordinates started texting him promiscuous stuff and flirting with him. And it was her. And he responded. It's already a problem. She just won. Why? Because he's the manager. He has a responsibility to know that that's inappropriate. So it didn't matter how much time we spent in in, what do you call it before you go to court? Yeah, mediation. It didn't matter. He had a responsibility, and he could prove that it was that it was her. He had a responsibility to stop that and to turn that in. So even claims, and so she filed this claim 2 years after she was gone, and it still ended up they had to pay for her. So again, you just have to protect yourself. It's the cost of doing business. I would tell you, things will scare you at first, where somebody files a claim for $100,000 and they leave at $10,000. I'll give you one last example, and I'll turn it back over to questions. We hired a lady at, how old was she? I think she must have been in her early 70s for an accounting position. She worked for us for about 4 or 5 years. We had gotten her larger screens to help her, and then it just wasn't working. She wasn't timely enough. We'd had some bank issues, some bank reconciliation issues, and so we'd done progressive discipline. We ended up letting her go. Guess what she filed a claim against us for? Age discrimination. I hired her when she was old. What are you talking about, right? So $50,000. When we terminated her, we gave her a 3-month, we offered her 3 months, and part of that 3-month severance, she would sign a piece of paper that said that she wouldn't come back on us for anything. She didn't want the severance, and she didn't sign the paper, so she went to court. Guess how much so she asked for $50,000. Guess how much was settled for? $10,000. So it was, and she paid 40% to the attorney. So many times, so the cost to you and me is all of that time. You know, I did spend money with the attorneys to do all of that, but it's part of the cost of doing business. So just like they say in medicine, right? It's prevention. You know, you take your apple a day and all of your vitamins. Well, it's about having best practices and making sure you have everything, all your ducks in a row, and know that every case is different, right? With that, any other
I have a
question?
Can you explain the range of services that you can provide to a client?
The only thing we can't do is carry your culture in your business because we're not in your business. You know, we have clients ranging from small 5, 10 person